So when you have this new virtual environment, or what we call the physical, we had said that normally we usually have two representations of the packet tracer. We can have the logical representation and the physical representation of the network. The physical representation is like how these different switches are organized in different areas of the network or physically placed in different areas of the network. The logical is basically the layout of different devices. And when you get to your packet tracer, you will see down here at the bottom left, you will see different network devices. So when we click on network devices, you can have as many. Here you have routers, switches. So on routers, we have several, which are also listed here. And we can pick just any, like we can take the 2901 or 2911. These are the common ones we usually use. And you can pick it like this one and you drop it there. You can also pick another one and you drop it there. So that is how you can be able to set up your network. Once you have those, these are the routers which we can be able to connect. We can also have switches. Now we said routers are going to connect different networks. Switches are supposed to connect local networks. So that is how we use these different devices, and I will be doing a video on the OSI layer model and how different devices connect at different levels. So that is a class I will also repeat on, but today we are looking at the practical of how we set up a network, and maybe we do some router configuration. Then after that, we can take up switches. We can take the 2960 switch and we drop it there. We can also take another one and we drop it there. Then we can have these switches connected maybe to some end devices. When we talk of end devices, you can see here we have a PC, we have a laptop, we have a server, we have a web server, a network computer, a controller, a printer, an IP phone, a tablet, a phone. So many devices which can be end devices that can be placed there. So we can pick this PC, we drop it there, and okay, somebody else is ready to join. Then thank you. At least people are going to join. So we also pick another PC, we drop it there. We pick another one, we drop there. We pick another one and we drop there. So those are several PCs we can have on the network. Then we had said that here we are going to have different components like the MCU board, the SBC board, and a think board. These are different connectivity devices which are normally used. Then after that, now we can take connections. Here you have different connections. The last class we used the automatic connection, this one, but we also have different others which we shall also discuss, and we'll do a video on them as well so that it is easy to reference. So you can have, this is a network connection. This is also another one. This is what we call a console connection. And a console connection is supposed to connect between your device and is supposed to connect between your device and maybe the router itself. That is, if you are using a laptop, and like we know, when you are connecting to a particular device, you will need to use maybe a laptop so that it can give you the interface for which you are going to connect. And then we also have this one, which is a straight through cable, and we shall discuss what it is used for. We also have a crossover cable. Normally, a straight through cable is supposed to connect between two different devices, maybe a computer and a switch, or a switch and a router. A crossover cable connects devices which are of the same type, maybe a computer and a computer. Then we also have a phone cable. We also have a coaxial cable. We also have a serial DCE cable, also a serial DTE cable. We also have an octo cable, an IoT custom cable, and a USB cable. So all of these are the different connections that we can use. Right now, let us use the automatic connections. So these ones, when I drop it here, it will be able to connect between the switch and the PC. We also take another one, we connect between the PC and the switch. So those ones have been connected. We can also connect between the switch and the router, and we can also do the same for this other network like that. So that way, we have been able to make those connections. And then usually now these two can be connected over there. So we have a local area network here and a local area network there, and these networks have been connected via these two routers. Or sometimes you can have a common router here whereby the switches are going to connect up. So up to there, I believe, Isaac, you have we have brought you up to speed. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay following.
Okay, thank you. So once we are through with those generic connections, then we can proceed now to configuring different devices. Initially, we had said that if, for example, we want to be able now to connect and to test if these two devices are able to communicate with one another, we can be able to set up a network which is going to enable that to work. We did it like this. We picked one PC, so we go back to end devices. We pick one PC, we drop it there. We pick another PC and we drop it there. Then once we have picked those two, we can have the crossover cable, which we said now is supposed to connect these two devices, and we connect it through the fast internet. So Caleb, could you kindly mute your microphone? Caleb, okay, I've been able to mute him. So once we have done, like we had said, the crossover cable is supposed to connect these two devices. When I was connecting through the first Ethernet port. So when I click on this device, it is able to show me its configuration setup using this dialog box. And in this configuration setup, we can be able to see the different, this is the physical view of how the machine looks like. And then uh, just a minute. And then what we are interested in is the desktop part. We can have the configuration part, which we shall do, where we can change even the name of the PC, but we are getting to the desktop part where we were saying, if this machine is running on Windows, we use the command prompt. If it is running on Linux, we normally use the terminal so that we can be able to run the application we are interested in. So when we go to the command prompt, we can be able to know what is the IP address of this machine. So, like for example, we can say IP config. Sorry, it should be one word. And from there, we are able to see details about this PC4, whereby we are saying that the PC4 has a local IP address version 6, or which is here. It also has IP4, it is not yet put. The subnet mask is not yet put. Also, the other Bluetooth connections and everything else, they have been shown there. So those ones have not yet been assigned. So what do we do? Go back to the machine itself, to the configuration, And once we are in the configuration, that is where we can be able now to configure some few things here and there, like for example, their settings. And once we have configured the IP address, then the machines will be able to communicate with one another. Because we had said that in order for these two machines to be able to communicate, they need unique identifiers. That is why we are assigning them the IP addresses so that they can be able to communicate with one another. Without an IP address, it will be very difficult. Another thing we had mentioned in class is that these machines are going to have several levels of addresses. We had said that we usually start with the physical or the MAC address of the machine, which is supposed to uniquely identify it locally. So that is how it starts. The physical address is supposed to identify that machine locally in the local area network. Then for this machine to be able to communicate, for this machine to be able to communicate outside that local area network, then it needs what we call an IP address. An IP address, somebody's trying to join the class. Let's allow them in. Don't know where they disappeared to, but we'll see. Gideon, kindly send the request again to join the class so that I can be able to add you in. I wasn't able to accept immediately. But we are saying when you want to communicate with the devices outside the local area network, then you need to have your IP address. Then within the machines, we said that there is going to be different applications that are communicating with one another. These applications, for them to be able to communicate, and when we are talking of applications, maybe it is like the Facebook Messenger, or we have something like Gmail. All of those are applications. They will require what we call port addresses so that they can be able to communicate together. These port addresses enable devices to be able to communicate with not devices, but applications or processes within the network to communicate with one another. And then we said there are also the last level of addresses is what now we call the normal addresses, like the domain name addresses. We also have like email addresses. Those ones are the normal ones we understand as human beings. But for the computers to be able to communicate, they require a kind of IP address. And that is what we need to be able to put up here. So are we together up to there? I'm doing this for the sake of Isaac. Sorry, I am not able to.
I'm following.
Okay, okay. Somebody says they can't see my screen. Is it visible?
No, you removed it while you're trying to invite somebody.
Oh, it got lost. What about now? Is it visible now?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, okay. And the configuration which I am doing, it is also visible.
Yeah, we can see the pop-up.
Okay, okay. So let us move on. Now, once you have the machine like we have said, those 4 levels of IP addresses, the next thing we want to do is to create the IP addresses for these machines to be able to communicate. So we go to the first Ethernet connection where we can be able to key in the IP address of that machine. We are saying that we could put an address like 10.10. Maybe 0.1. The the default subnet mask is usually 255.255 or something like that. This one we are taking 255.0.0.0. Then that is the static IP address. So once we are done with that, in the global setup, we can be able to put in some more details. But let us leave it at that. And then we go to the other machine here and we get to its configuration. We go to the first Ethernet interface and we put the other one we had put like 10.10.0 maybe dot 2, then the default subnet mask, here it is. And once we have that, then we are good to go. When we get back here, we can get to the desktop and again try to check the IP configuration. And automatically, you can see that the IP address now is there, 10.10.0.1, and the subnet mask is there. When we come to the other machine, you can also check its configuration. This is very quick. And in this one is 10.10.0.2. So let us, when we are on this machine, we can be able to ping the other machine or try to connect to the other machine. That is sending some packets so that we can see. And we use this command which is ping. Then we say 10.10.0.1. That is the machine we're trying to connect to. And automatically we are able to see that we have been able to send packets, like 4 packets of data have been sent and they have been received and there is a response. So that is how you can be able to set up connection and test that connectivity. Up to there we are together.
Yeah, we are.
Gideon, kindly mute your mic. Okay, I have muted that mic. Okay, so at least up to there, we are up to speed on what we were doing and what you can be able to do on this packet tracer environment. Then let us come back now to the router configuration as well as switches. That is something that we needed to look at. Now, when I open this router, again, I just click on it and it is able to open. Once it opens, there are 2 ways you can see it. There is the configuration part. This is the physical, how it is going to appear. When you look at it, I don't know if it is able to expand. No. But when you look at it, if you are looking at the physical device, this is simply a simulation. When you look at it, you can see that there are different components you will find. Here is where you make those configurations. This is the Cisco 2900 series. This is where you're going to power it in. And these are the ports where you can be able to plug in. It has a USB port. It also has a console port. Like we were talking of a console cable. A console cable is going to have one end looking like the RJ45 terminator, and the other end, mostly the current ones, they have the USB connection so that the USB connection can get into your computer or into your laptop, and the other end can get into the router, and that is where it is going to give you an interface, because the router itself doesn't have an interface. or it doesn't have a screen where you can be able to perform different activities. So you will need to connect it like that, and then you are able to work with it. And that is something we shall do when we meet face to face at least. But here you can do basically everything with the configurations and setting up your network. So that is the physical view of the device. Once you are through with the physical view of the device, then you can go to the configuration of the device. And here it is. Here you can change the name of the device. So basically, we can call it maybe router 1, R1. Once you have done that, it is going to change. And then you can also get to something else, which is the CLI, or the interface of the router, and this interface is supposed to allow you to start configuring your router. So if I pressed enter, sorry, enter, it is going to give me this kind of an output, router with greater than sign. Are you able to see that? I hope everybody is able to see. And this is what we normally call the user exec mode. It is normally called, let me see if I can make. This is usually the user exec mode. I'm just typing there to explain what it means. And this is the default mode. Immediately after you have booted your router, or after you start your router and it is connected, then that is what it is going to give you, the user exec mode. And the user exec mode is going to allow you to connect. So it allows connection with other devices. Like automatically you can be able to connect with other devices. You can be able to perform basic tests like connectivity tests. You can also temporarily change terminal settings, like just what we have done, changing the name. So those are some of the activities you can perform on the user exec mode. So at least here it tells me, it's because I have typed things which are not there. I was just making some notes. So it tells me like that is an invalid input. If you type a command here, which is not recognized by the router, this is the kind of output you're going to get. That the input you have put is invalid, and that is how it operates. Then again, when we are here, there are three levels of the router configuration modes, which you can always work with. The first one we have done is the user exec mode. And if you typed maybe the question mark, you can be able to see the kind of activities you can perform. When I type a question mark here, it is going to list all the commands that are available in the user exec mode. Like connect, you can be able to open the terminal for connection. Disable, you can turn off the privileged commands. That is the next level which we will be going. You can also disconnect, that is an existing network connection can be disconnected. You can also go to the privileged exec mode, which uses the command enable. Then you can also exit, that is moving from the exec mode. You can log out, you can ping, that is like testing connectivity. You normally use the ping command. You can also resume, that is now an activity that you had suspended when you disconnected, you can resume it and move on. You can also show, you show the running system information, something we shall also be looking at. And you can also open a secure shell connection as well as open a telnet connection. A telnet connection is the one which you normally, no, router, that one is not the same. When we go to the one with a hashtag, we are going to the privileged exec mode, which we are going to next. So telnet is the one we normally use to connect to a physical router. And then the terminal is where you're going to set the line parameters. So, and then trace route is when you are tracing route to a particular destination. We shall also use it. So when we want to move on to the next level, this is the first level by default where you land once you switch on your router. The next one, we normally use this command, this one which is over here. Where is it? The enable. And when you type enable here, enable, you press enter, see the it has changed to the hashtag. We were using the greater than sign here. Here it has changed to the hashtag. And this is what we call the privileged exec mode. Exec mode. And this one is now going to allow you to set operating parameters. Setting of parameters, also high level testing, and list more commands. So that is what it does. Basically, I'm just putting the notes, and you see it tells me that that is an invalid input because those are not commands. If I was to put a command like a question mark again, you see when you are in the privileged exec mode, you are able to get more commands than you are in the user exec modes. Because here you are also having so many other commands that you can work with. And one of the commands that we want to work with, and that is where now you can do a lot of activities like securing your router, configuring your router name, and all of that is what we call the configure terminal. If you want to see more, you just press the space bar and you're able to see more commands which are listed over there. So how do we get there and how do we do it? We can say configure terminal and I press enter. See now again, it has changed to the config terminal. I hope you're able to see that. And here, now you have entered into the global configuration mode. This is what we call the global configuration mode. And this mode is going to contain commands. Commands that modify the operation of the router. So that is what it means. But since it is not a command, again, it tells me that is an invalid input that has been detected. So what are some of the activities we can do? So far, we have mentioned three levels of router management that we can work with. First one we have said is the user exec mode. The other one is the privileged exec mode. And the last one is the global configuration mode. We have said on the global configuration mode, that is where you can perform so many activities. Like you can enter a configuration command one per line, not like so many, but one per line. And then once you do that, then it can be able to adjust. Like here, we have our router still being called router here, yet we have changed it to R1. So if we want to change it, how do we do that? We can say hostname and we change it to R1. Press enter. Sorry. Haijachange to R1, imechange to R exclamation mark. I think I was holding the shift key, but that is how you change it. I hope up to there we are together. Nobody is lost.
Following.
Okay, good. Then we want to also understand how do we change password. Like for example, I can just type password, sorry, and I put a question mark. So it means that you see here, it has told me that this is an unrecognized command. Why? Because so far there isn't any password that has been set, but we want to ensure that our router doesn't, it can't be accessed just by anybody. So how do we do that? Do that by typing again password and you press enter. So it still refuses. Let me just password. Just a minute. First of all, I change this host name. Yes, it is changed. Then I go to enable password. I press enter. It tells me an incomplete command. Why? Oh, an incomplete command. That is interesting. It should be able to give us it should be able to give us the option for typing in the password, which is enable password and try and put maybe tests. It's still saying, okay, now it has worked. So if I exited, let me say exit, I'm going to use the exit. Console. Let's see. Yes, we have exited. We also exit from the privileged exec mode. Now it's like we have switched on our, we have switched off our router. So if I want to get back to the router, I press enter, it comes there, router 1, and we say enable. See, now it is asking us for the password because we have already set the password. So our password was test. And we get to the privileged exec mode. Then we get when we get to the privileged exec mode, we also want to go to the global configuration mode and we say configure terminal, and there we are. So you have noticed that the password is working. So are you able to go up to that point?
Yeah.
Okay, so try that with the other router so that you can be able to change the router name, you can be able to configure a password. Still, we will see that the password is something that is also exposed. At this point, we have not protected the password. If somebody was able now to check the room, they can be able to see that the password is exposed, and that is something we need to avoid. So quickly, in like 2 minutes, try out on the other router, and then we continue from there. Just a quickly, and then we proceed. Okay, so you have been able to do the configuration and it is working, right? Okay, now when you go back, you exit, there was a command I was trying to run to show here. There are two types of configurations which you normally find. Whenever you switch on your router or whenever you log in into your router and you are working with it, there are two types of configurations you will find. Like for example, we have the running configuration, and there is also the startup configuration. These two configurations are there to help us see what we have been doing on the router or on the switch. Most of these commands will be applicable to both switches and routers. Only a few things are going to be different from the other. So the running configuration, any kind of configuration that we have set up, it will be seen. It will be shown in the router or in the system. Now, or any startup configuration, since we started the router or the switch, what configuration have we made? Those can be seen by using the running configuration or the startup configuration. So how do you get to that? Like here, I was able to exit. So you have to get out of the global configuration mode. Here you exit. Once you have exited from the global configuration mode, then you can show the running configuration. It is going to build the configuration or it is going to collect the information about what you have done on your router, and it will be able to show you. Like this version is 15.1, the router configuration, and there are no service timestamps or date. Why? Because we never configured the date information or the timing information. If you remember, we just started automatically. Then we changed our host name to router 1, that is C. We also enabled the password, and the password is test. Now, one thing you will notice is that the password is going to be case sensitive. So the password that you are going to put, you have to be sure that you know it, because the test which is in lower letters is different from test which is in capital letters. So you have to always ensure that you remember the password and it is case sensitive. So these configurations can be seen from there. So as much as when we are typing the password, it is not seen. The moment somebody else comes into the router and it is able and they are able to run these two commands, the running configuration, show running configuration, or show startup configuration, they will be able to see whatever kind of configuration you have done on your machine, and this information is saved on the router. So how do we ensure that we are not exposing? Because this already, for security purposes, it is exposed. And this is something that we need to prevent so that in the future, you do not do the setup and then it is already exposed. So how do we do that? Like here, again, when we are here, we just uh, get to there. And then, since we are in the executive or the privileged exec mode, we need to get to the global configuration mode so that we can be able to change that password to be secret. How do we do that? So we get to the configure terminal. Then once we are there, then we are going to say enable password and then we put secret. So once we are through with that, it is already going to be encrypted. such that somebody may not be able to see it. So let us exit, so that we get back to the privileged exec mode, and we go again to show panel configuration. So again, once you have built that configuration, see here, the password is now going to be secret. You will not be able to see the password itself. And that is how you can be able to hide your password. As we continue later, we will see also how you can be able to change even from the default encryption of Cisco devices to what we call the global encryption of all the devices around the globe. But that is how you usually set up your password. That is how you usually are able to enable it to be encrypted. Up to there.
Mwalimu, can I ask something?
Yes,
You've changed the password to secret, but now
yes.
I've tried accessing the same terminal with the word secret. It opens and opens the whole terminal.
It opens the whole terminal
Yes, you can try
because,
yes.
yes, like for example, let me show you. For example, configure terminal, and there we are. So what we did was enable password. Then we said that it needs to be secret. So what we have basically done is to change it to secret, because if I exit and I go back here, I exit again so that I am logged out of the terminal. When I am returning, I try to enable. It will ask for a password. If I put test, see, it is asking for a password. I put test again, it is asking for a password. I put test again, it tells me bad secret. Why? Because I am putting the wrong password. Yet we have changed it to secret. So let us go enable. It asks for a password, I put secret. See, it has allowed me once we have put secret. Why? Because there is another activity we did not perform. And that is what I was coming to, which is we need to save our configuration. Once we perform a particular configuration, then we need to save it. Hapo sijui kama nimekujibu kuria. So this is how we do it.
Umenijibu, maybe the
Yes,
point I'm waiting is how somebody cannot see the password or the configured. Then is it configured?
yes.
Okay.
Let us get there. So we go to configuring terminal, configure terminal, and when we are there, the enable password. see it is incomplete. So going to set it as, let's call it again test, and then we enter. Then we go to the next command and we say enable secret. Sorry, enable secret test. Here it tells us that the enable secret you have chosen is the same as your enable password and it is not recommended. So why? Because the password that we had put as test is already exposed. So what do we need to do? We need to enter one that is not shown. So we enable secret password as, let us take another one. We can call it maybe CCNA. You press enter. So that password cannot be viewed. Up to there, tuko sawa sawa.
Tuko sawa?
Okay. Then the next thing is that we need to ensure what we have done is going to remain or it is not going to be changed. Or when you need to change it, then you will need to have such authorization. So we say save. We need to exit first of all. We go back to the privileged exec mode and then we save running configuration config. So this says an invalid input. Again, just a command. Now, one thing you will notice that if you are going to put a command that is not there, it is not going to work. If we want to see how we save, we just put a question mark and you are able to see the different commands that are going to be used. And then we can talk about which command we want to use so that we can save our work. If you look at all of these are commands that we can be able to work with and any is going to work. You look at the list, we do not have one which is for saving the configuration. So how do we save that configuration we have made? That is always the most important. Like we were saying, the configuration was showing us that you can manage the clock system. That one we have not done, but we shall do it as we move on. Today, we just want to ensure that we can be able to configure a password on all our devices. And like I have told you, that configuration can work for both the switch and a router. So, which one are we going to work with? Normally, when you look at this list, you will see that we have one we call copy, but how we are going to put it is we are going to put it as copy the running configuration and start. That way, we can be able to overwrite the current configuration file, or we can be able now to save the running configuration so that it is going to be saved on the machine. Since we do not have a destination file name, then it is going, we just press enter and it builds the configuration on the startup config. So the startup configuration file is the one which we have saved our work, and then we are good to go. So whenever you will come in again, you will need to change that configuration file, or else, if for example, again, try to change the password and try to log in. Now we have saved our work. And maybe once you change the password, try now to log in. Without saving the configuration, you will realize that it is not able to work, because what is saved in the configuration file is what we have used, or what we have enabled, which is CCNA. Hapo nina make sense?
Yeah, we're following.
Okay, good. So if, for example, I said, let us go to the configure terminal. And once I am there, I go and say, maybe I want to adjust the password again. And I say, maybe password, maybe test. And I imagine that it has changed, because once you do that, that is a command that should be able to work. And then I exit. Again, I exit so that I am logged out. When I come now to enable to get to the privileged exec mode, so, and I am asked for a password, then mark a test. It is going to refuse, because why? It is not the password. Since I have not saved the configuration, what is in the configuration is the CNA one that we had put, and there it is. So when I also try to show the running configuration, I am able to see that there was one which I had put as test, but it is not the real one. But the one that was secret, as much as we know it is Cisco, it has been encrypted to something like this that cannot be understood. Hapo sasa imekuwa clear?
Very clear.
Okay, thank you. So up to there, you should be able to configure the router and the switch so that they are working, and that is the configuration we shall pick up from. Now, for the sake of the classes, we have missed two classes, and I would like us to have some makeups.